Okay, so let us carry on because it is time to carry on. So we have just seen how the three kinds of good conduct, when fulfilled, fulfill the four factors, the four kinds of mindfulness meditation. Yes, so the important point here is that you have to fulfill again the three kinds of good conduct. Yeah, that is kind of the important message here. And fulfilling it is really hard. Yeah, this is why the path is so hard, because fulfilling this means fulfilling metta, it means fulfilling karuna, compassion, it means fulfilling to some extent also right view, and that is why this is difficult. Only then will your meditation really take off, and then your meditation becomes easy, and you sit back, you wait, you allow the breath to just get into focus, and then the meditation happens by itself. And this is the automatic meditation happening in this way. So that is that factor there. So then we have the next one. When the factor of the four kinds of mindfulness meditation is fulfilled, it fulfills the factor of the 7 awakening factors. Yeah, so when you do the breath meditation, the mindfulness meditation, then the awakening factors are the things that make you awakened. That's why they're called awakening factors. Yeah, so by watching the breath, the awakening factors grow inside of you. Number 1, sati sambojjhanga, the awakening factor of mindfulness. Yeah, if you're watching the breath with mindfulness, that is there right away. So that's the first awakening factor dealt with. Second awakening factor, Dhamma Vichaya Sambojjhanga, the awakening factor of investigation of qualities. Yeah, it really means qualities because it is about the hindrances and it's about the awakening factors themselves. And so you know the qualities in your heart, you know the qualities in your mind, and you purify that. You understand how they arise, you understand their causes, you understand how they become stronger. This is kind of what this is about. You investigate the dark and the bright, the blameworthy and the blameless, the wholesome and the unwholesome. That's what this is about. And by investigating it, you abandon the bad and you develop the good because you understand how they are conditioned. Yeah, so this happens during breath meditation. One of the amazing things about breath meditation, all of this happens more or less automatically. Because one of the things that is interesting about meditation, because you are focusing 100% on the breath and not focusing on anything else, you are not giving fuel to the defilements. To be able to sustain ill will, to sustain desire, you have to give fuel to it. The fuel that sustains ill will is the way you look at a certain person. Yeah, so if you're just watching the breath, well, you're not looking at that person at all, so you're not sustaining the ill will, nor are you sustaining desire. Desire is only sustained because you're looking at a certain object in a certain way. Yeah, oh, that food looks really nice, okay? If you keep on watching that food and thinking about it, desire will be sustained. But if you stop thinking about that food, desire will die away, right? Obviously. And so this is why watching the breath already fulfills the Dhammavicaya Sambojjhanga, because it is kind of defilements are just decreasing. And if they stop decreasing, well, then you need to investigate a bit more. Then, as your meditation goes deeper, you get the Virya Sambojjhanga, the energy awakening factor. Yeah, the mind becomes energized. Why? Because a mind without defilements has energy. That's the nature of the mind. Take away the bad, negative qualities, and the energy is there under the surface. This is just the way the mind works. So remove defilements, the mind becomes energetic. You can feel that in your meditation sometimes, yeah? You overcome the tiredness, you overcome certain defilements, and the energy comes back. You're very tired when you go to work, but then on the weekend you have a bit more time for meditation, maybe you get some energy back coming into your mind. That energy is very closely related to joy, to piti. And so once you have the energy, the joy very often is just behind the scenes. The joy comes. If you had some joy and happiness in your meditation, you know what that feels like. It's real. That's when meditation becomes a lot of fun. Yeah, it's really nice when that starts to happen, and you start to understand what this really is about, and it's very powerful. Yeah, this is when these things kind of, you start to enter a different reality, a different world, the spiritual reality, the spiritual good qualities. Prior to that, we rely on the sensual world. Now you're entering slowly, stage by stage, the spiritual world and the spiritual qualities instead. Then you keep on watching the breath. Yeah, the piti arises. As you watch the breath, deeper and deeper, you become tranquil. The deep sense of tranquility and peace kind of descends over you. It is still imbued with a powerful sense of happiness and joy, but you're also tranquil at the same time. All of this arises out of watching the breath. The 7 awakening factors are developed by watching the breath, or if you want to call it the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, same thing. You become tranquil, and eventually, as you become really tranquil, because it is so happy, so blissful, so joyful, you achieve samadhi. You achieve stillness of the mind. The mind becomes unified. And you get deeper and deeper into an alternative reality where the 5 senses are left behind in a very complete and perfect way. This is what real samadhi is like, just in overview. And then you develop that samadhi even further, and eventually it goes all the way to the upekkha sambojjhanga, the awakening factor of equanimity. That's the last one. That's kind of when you take the samadhi to its deepest level, all the way to the 4 jhanas. So this is the awakening factors. These are the things that lead to awakening. If you have all of those, which includes right view. Right view is not mentioned in those awakening factors, but it is included in the sequence. The 3 kinds of good conduct includes right view, and so right view is part of this. So when you have that right view and you have the awakening factors together, then you are ready for the big time. Are you ready for the big time? Yes, okay, good. I'm good on you, so I'm glad you are ready for the big time. So this is one of those strange things. I was looking at the Parayanavagga. Parayanavagga is the last book of the Sutta Nipata. Sutta Nipata is part of the Khuddaka Nikaya. And one of the things that kind of stands out of the Parayanavagga is these 2 things that are really important for awakening. These were Brahmin students. They were already had really good meditation. They were achieving things like the sphere of nothingness, and they were kind of already beyond the jhanas in the meditation practice. So they had really good samadhi. But that was not enough to reach awakening, because they were Brahmins. They had wrong view. And so they go to the Buddha, and the Buddha gives them the right view. And so you have right view plus samadhi. This is the magical thing in the Dhamma. These 2 things together is really all you need. The rest of the Noble Eightfold Path comes with the samadhi. The purpose of the rest of the Noble Eightfold Path is basically just to achieve samadhi. So samadhi includes all the other factors within it. And then you have to have the right view. So right view and samadhi together, that is kind of like the gunpowder and the match, and then bang, kind of it blows up. This is the idea here. So now you have reached that point. You have come to all the way to the 7 awakening factors. And so now let's see what happens at the very end here. When the 7 awakening factors are fulfilled, they fulfill knowledge and freedom. That's the fuel for knowledge and freedom, and that's how it is fulfilled. So you want to fulfill the 7 awakening factors. Ideally, you want to take them to the very end, to the upekkha sambojjhanga, the awakening factor of equanimity. That's ideally where you want to go. So if the 1st jhana is not enough, you take it all the way to the 4th jhana. Then you bring in the idea of right view, it's all there. And then you get knowledge, you fulfill knowledge, or insight I think is better, because it's really vidya. I would call it insight, because knowledge sounds like book knowledge, but actually it is about insight. And so you gain insight and freedom. Vijja vimutti are the two Pali words behind that. And there's something very powerful about that idea, about Vijja vimutti. Yeah, you gain insight. Insight is wisdom. Insight is understanding reality, understanding the world as it actually is. That's what insight is about. And if you are wise, isn't that something everyone wants in the world, to be wise? Because wise means your ability to see the world in the right way. It means your ability to deal with people in the right way. It means understanding the difference between happiness and suffering. It means really relating to the world in a way that gives good results. That is what wisdom or insight is about. So if you can have that insight, which is Vijja, then you have everything you want. And what, of course, is very important is that Vijja, that insight, is always conjoined with freedom. It always leads to freedom. You are no longer in prison. You finally saw that the door was open. And so you just had to push it a little bit. And then you walk out. And you walk out of prison. And you are free. There's something very beautiful about freedom. Because we all probably feel a little bit imprisoned in our life. We feel a little bit too dependent on other people and external things. We know that we are vulnerable because we depend on other things. And one day you lose that dependence. You become fully solid within yourself. You become independent. You no longer rely on external things for your life. Whatever happens outside, you can deal with it. I was just reading some of the Sutta with Nanda Mata. Nanda Mata is one of the greatest female lay disciples of the Buddha. And one day she was chanting to herself the Parinavagga. The Parinavagga is just what I talked about before, the fifth book of the Sutta Nipata, where the Brahmins go and see the Buddha. And she was chanting this to herself, or reciting it to herself. And as she was reciting this to herself, one of the kings of the four great kings passes by. I don't know what he's doing there, kind of flying through the air or something. And he listens to Nandamata, chanting these verses. And then he says, "Oh, sadhu, sadhu, sister, for chanting those verses. And then she says, "Oh, I give these verses to you as a present." She was one of those great disciples. And some of these people are really extraordinary, so inspiring to reading about them. And then this king, he says, "Well, okay, thank you, but can you do something more for me, please?" And she says, "Sure, what is it, what do you want?" And he says, "Well, I know that Venerable Sariputta and Mahamoggallana, they are coming from the south, they will be passing through here. Please invite them for a meal and share that meal with me. So you kind of make an offering, you share it with me, or you share that merit with me." And she says, "Yeah, of course, I'm very happy to do that." And so she invites Venerable Sariputta and Mahamoggallana for a meal. And then she shares kind of the offering she does to them with this Vesavanna. Vesavanna is the king, one of the four great kings. In other words, these are the heavenly kings, right? So these are not just ordinary kings. And then she converses with the Venerable Sariputta and the Venerable Mahamoggallana. And they say, "Wow, you're sharing this with the kings. Wow, you are talking to the gods." "Oh, yes," she says, "but that's not the only amazing quality that I have." And then one of the qualities she says that, "Well, a long time ago, when my only son was imprisoned by the king and then executed by the king, I had no sense of grief because of that." Why? Because my mind is so developed. And then she talks about being able to attain the four jhanas, and she is a non-returner. So she is kind of this remarkable laywoman who is a non-returner. And even when her son is executed, she feels no kind of emotional pain because of that. That's kind of powerful. That's what independence means. Things happen in the world, but you are above that. It doesn't mean you are cold, not at all. It means that you are beyond being attachments and these things in the world. And that's kind of the remarkable thing. And there are some beautiful stories like that in the suttas, and this is what makes the suttas often so interesting and powerful. So how are we doing for time? I keep on losing my time here. Okay, So we're gonna, it's 2:50, no, what is it now? 2:30, can I do it? 3 o'clock. Okay, we carry on a little bit more. Good. So let's carry on. So we're still in the same sutta. Now comes a nice simile. This is also a simile that I read every time. Thank you for reminding me that I do this every time, Niwern. I completely forgot about that. So to me, it's just so nice. I like these suttas, so I do them every time. Yeah. And if you think that you have to hear them many times, I have to hear them even more often because I do many, many of these retreats every year. So you are... anyway, so this is the simile that explains what is going on. Right? It's like when the heavens rain heavenly on a mountain top, and the water flows down to fill the hollows, the crevices, and the creeks. As they become full, they fill up the pools. The pools fill up the lakes fill up the streams, and the streams fill up the rivers. And as the rivers become full, they fill up the ocean. That is the fuel for the ocean, and that's how it fills up. And then the Buddha goes on and says basically, so too, yeah? So too it is with the starting off with seeing or hanging out with the true people, the Sappurisa Sangseva, at the beginning, leads to hearing the good Dhamma, leads to faith, leads to Yoniso Manasikara, leads to Sati Sampajanya, the clear comprehension, full awareness, leads to sense restraint, leads to the fulfillment of the 3 kinds of good conduct, which leads to the mindfulness meditation, which leads to the 7 awakening factor, which leads to liberation and insight and liberation. Yeah? So it is like the heaven rains heavenly on the mountaintop. That is what it's like. And so I always like to make this as a very important point. All you have to do is to keep on raining on that mountaintop. If it keeps on raining on that mountaintop, the rest is automatic. Yeah, if it keeps on raining, then it will start flowing down in the hollows and the crevices. If it keeps on raining, eventually those hollows and crevices, when they fill up, they will fill up the little lakes, the little pools. When those pools fill up and overflow, long as it keeps on raining, the lakes will fill up. The only reason why this sequence stops is because it stops raining on the mountaintop. That's the only reason why it stops. Then the lakes fill up the streams, the kind of the larger crevices and things, start filling up. Then the streams fill up the large rivers, like the Ganges River, the Ganges is an enormous river in India. I don't know if you've been to India, Ganges is a pretty impressive river, If you cross it at Patna, I think the bridge is 3 kilometers long, it's 3 kilometers wide, the river at that point. It's like goes on and on and on forever, especially with the Indian traffic. It takes a long time to get across that river. So, and then it goes to the ocean, and it fills into the ocean. And the only reason why all of this stops is because the rain stops on the mountaintop. So all you have to do is keep raining. What is that rain? Well, that rain is seeing the Sappurisa, seeing the Buddha, hanging out with the noble ones. That's what it is. And if you keep on hanging out with the noble ones, this is the automatic consequence of that. This is how it works. It's so easy, right? It's too easy to be true, You think, wow, this cannot be true. That's kind of what people mostly think. But it is true. And all you have to do is kind of get out of the way for the sequence to happen. Very often why it doesn't happen is because our ego gets in the way. Our defilements get in the way. So this is what I mean by allowing the Dhamma to rise to the surface. Sometimes wait, don't act straight away. Wait a little bit. The Dhamma is there within you, and you need to listen for the Dhamma. And when you listen for the Dhamma, it will arise inside of you. Oh, that's what I should be doing. And after a while, you lose a bit your energy, you lose a bit your inspiration. You go back to the Aryans, you go back to the Buddha. You do like Niwern, you come and hear this Avijjāsutta every time when you come here to the PGF. Because actually it is a very inspiring sutta, right? I'm sure you agree with that, Niwern. It's so inspiring and it's so full of information, full of how the Dhamma works as a complete whole, how one factor leads to the next one, and how it's all interlocked in this beautiful path that leads you forward. That is what this is about. Keep on listening to that Dhamma from the real areas in the world. And if you're unsure who the areas are, go to the suttas, because that is guaranteed. The Buddha has to be an area, because if the Buddha is not an area, we are in deep trouble. So the Buddha is the only one we have to assume is the area. So come back every year. Come back next year so you can hear the Avijjāsutta one more time, yeah? Or the Avijjāsutta one more time. Maybe next year I won't do it. We'll see what happens. It's uncertain. So that is the Avijjāsutta for you. So allow all of that to fill up, and then one day maybe you too will reach the ocean of Vijja and Vimutti, of insight and liberation. And then you will say, yay, liberation. Thank you so much, Buddha. Now you really want to bow down to the Buddha and thank him from the bottom of your heart for having liberated you. But each stage on the way, you feel a little bit more liberated. Enjoy every little step of baby liberation. And as you enjoy every baby liberation, eventually the big time liberation happens at the end of the path. So, let us stop there, because now we're going to move on we're going to switch gears a little bit. I wonder whether there is a summarizing. Actually, I should say a little bit, but I shouldn't stop there. I'm stopping too fast, because we have been talking about how to avoid associating with the fools and how to associate with the wise people, how to recognize who is wise and who is not wise, who is a fool. So keep on watching carefully and you will be able to recognize that. But the other line in that sutta is to honor those worthy of honor. This is also a very important point. And it means, in a large part, when you honor those people who really are special in this world, and honoring, what does that mean? Well, it means to be respectful. That's part of it. It means that you take what they say seriously. You listen to what they have to say. It means that when you come to the Buddha, you're happy to bow down to the Buddha. This is honoring those worthy of honor. And although this is very beautiful, we shouldn't underestimate these things. Sometimes we think that we're kind of putting ourselves in a very low position if you bow down to someone else. Bowing down is a very beautiful thing. When you bow down to the Buddha, or you bow down to someone who is really worthy of that respect, you're actually doing something that builds up the good qualities inside of you. Because when you bow down to the Buddha, you're not really bowing down to a person. What you're bowing down to is the enlightenment, the awakening, the kindness, the compassion, the wisdom, the samadhi. You're bowing down to all of these beautiful qualities. You're respecting those beautiful qualities. And when you respect those beautiful qualities, those good qualities will grow inside of you. That is why we bow down. So bow, make the bowing more meaningful. Often people bow quickly. They kind of, yes, let's get the bowing out of the way so we get on with the real practice. No, bowing is itself part of the real practice. If you bow with the right attitude, it will give rise to something very positive inside of you. Allow that to build. Allow that to become something positive. Every part of the practice should be meaningful in this way. Bow slowly. Remind yourself what you're bowing down to. You're bowing down to the potential inside of you. You have the potential for these qualities. Now you're bowing down to the potential inside every human being. When you bow down in that way, it becomes very meaningful and powerful. So bowing down is a way of respecting the Buddha. It's almost like thanking the Buddha for having given us these teachings in the world. It's actually quite easy to bow down to someone who has no ego. When I bow down to Ajahn Brahm, it's really easy because Ajahn Brahm, there's a feeling, you don't really feel any ego there, and so it's easy. But if you bow down to someone who has an ego, then it feels like you may put yourself in harm's way because it's kind of dangerous if they have an ego, they may take advantage of you. But if there's no ego, there's nothing to be fearful of. It's just beautiful. The Buddha allows you to bow down to him because the Buddha knows that you will grow by bowing down to him. That's why he does it. It's not for no other reason. Not because the Buddha wants you as a disciple. The Buddha probably wants you to disappear. Because for the Buddha, it's just a hassle to have people around, right? He doesn't want them. Okay, so if you want to bow, bow, yeah, but then leave quickly afterwards. The Buddha will never say that. He will have patience with you. But it's not because he wants you to be his disciple. The Buddha does not really like to hang around people. The Buddha doesn't want to have a lot of things going on. The Buddha wants simplicity. The Buddha, after his awakening, was very reluctant to become a teacher because he knew the hassle. So the reason we bow down is not for others. It is for ourselves, our own growth and our own kind of prosperity. So honor those who are worthy of honor. It's a beautiful way of thinking about the world when we do that. And when we do that, of course, we are the beneficiaries of that conduct ourselves. So take those opportunities. Understand that there are things in the world that are special, that are higher, that are, lifted up, are superior and better than what we normally see in the world. And when we make that kind of distinction, that kind of difference, then we are on the right track. Anyway, now is a good time to take a 5-minute break, and then we carry on afterwards.
Thank you. Ajahn, can you explain how merits fits into here?
Merits?
Yeah.
Okay, so what merits, what do you mean? You mean like...
How does the creation of merits fits into this the AN 10.61,
okay.
the steps? Thank you.
It fits in with the 3 kinds of good conduct. Yeah, so the 3 kinds of good conduct means any kind of good actions that you do. And so that includes making merit. It includes generosity. Generosity is kind of one of the punya is the Pali word for merit. And that punya is made in 3 ways. One is by generosity, one is by sila, and one is bhavana, is the development of the mind. All of those 3 are 3 ways of merit. So basically, all of this is, the whole path here is basically making merit in one way or another. So usually generosity, sila, and bhavana. Yeah, so generosity, morality, and meditation are the 3 bases for merit. So it's part of the whole thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So in essence, it's body, mind, and speech. As long as the body, the mind, and the speech is conduct, then it fits everything into the Dharma's teachings.
Yeah.
So I also understand that meditation, one can accrue merit, right? What about Sutta class? Like understanding Dharma's teachings, that we are here.
Yeah.
So my question is, say for example, if your answer is yes, Ajahn, if your answer is yes, that attending a Sutta class is a merit making, then how can I do a transference of merits? Can you teach me how? Thank you.
Well, attending a sutta class is not in itself necessarily merit. It depends what it does to you, how it affects your mind. If it affects your mind in a good way, then it's kind of merit, because then it's developing your mind. There's almost like part of the bhavana maya punya, merit made through bhavana, through developing your mind or whatever. So it depends on how it affects your mind. Because learning can be empty or learning can be fruitful. If it's empty learning, you're just accumulating knowledge. But if it is learning that is used for practice and it makes a change in your life, then it becomes beneficial and then it becomes punya. But downstairs, if you brought some food for sharing with everyone or something like that, then that's definitely punya. Yeah, that's kind of part of merit. So the way to share that merit is simply when we do the chanting, yeah, then you say to whoever are your relatives who passed away, I'm doing this on your behalf, yeah, I'm doing this for you, I'm sharing this merit with you. So you say that in your mind. And when you do that, if they are reborn in a certain place, they will be able to tune into that, and they will hear you, and then they will rejoice in the fact that you are sharing merit with them. I'm doing this for you, yeah? Saying that to your parents or whatever. As we do the chanting downstairs, you'd share that merit with them at that time. I'm doing this on your behalf, yeah, to make you happy. Please accept this merit. Yeah. And then there will always be somebody who can receive that on the other end. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Ajahn, so the how to say, the association with the wise is a good friend is essential. So let's say, and then we without the fulfillment of association with the wise person, good person, then the path won't be fulfilled. But then we have this. I think there's one of the sutta that the Buddha says that, I mean, even though you hold the corner of his cloak all the time, you are close to him, associate with him all the time, but then if you do not see the Dharma, you are 1,000 miles away or something like that. I cannot remember. So, so what exactly? I mean, from this instance, you can see that. I mean, getting close to a good person all the time does not necessarily mean that you have your path fulfilled by itself.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile with that? I mean, that sutta.
Yeah. So I think it is associating with the wise means that you are making that choice to associate with the wise. Yeah. You are choosing that, and you are choosing that because you have some sort of understanding, some sort of inclination of the mind. And so you have to associate with that intention of using it in a positive way. I think that's probably part of it. But it is true, yeah, sometimes you associate with the wise, but I think those people who associate with the wise in the way you are talking about, they don't really have that intention of associating with the wise as such. They have an intention that is maybe slightly different. Maybe they just like this person, or they are attached to them or something like that. They'd like to hang around. But they haven't got that spiritual aspiration in the same way here. So it's obviously the case that not everyone benefits in this way, but when you have that intention, you really want to associate with the wise because you have some deeper understanding of what is going on, then the process will work. But you're right, it doesn't always work, and sometimes it stops at some of these levels on the path, it doesn't go any further, because there is some underlying condition inside you that blocks you from going deeper. And that underlying condition that needs to be unblocked for the path to kind of go further. But yes, it is not really, it is not enough in its own right. You're right. It is a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition. It is a required, but it doesn't in itself lead to necessarily the consequences. Maybe it would lead to those consequences if you hung around that person long enough. Maybe eventually it would work on you. But for some people, it can take a long, long time before that association with the wise really takes off. Maybe it takes 10 lifetimes for some people, yeah. And so then, of course, it can be a problem, yeah.